friends, my name is Lukas, and today we're going to be talking about marine life at the Gulf of Mexico, middle of nowhere, Florida, for a poor excuse of a beach. And let's get right on to it, You know, me and my friend, we went and visited this place, and we're going to tell you, it was a struggle to, find all these different organisms and species, but I don't know, I'm just going to tell you a little bit. So we drove all 3 hours from Valdosta, Georgia, and it was a very, very, very long trip, but I'll save it for the presentation now. Why don't we just dive right on in, folks? Whoa! Okay. Good morning, Vietnam. Welcome back, and thank you for tuning in to another desperate extra credit project with yours truly, Lukas Smithis, at the Gulf Specimen Marine Lab and St. Mark's Lighthouse in Panacea, Florida. Now, if you look all these lovely pictures of myself, I was tasked with taking pictures by a couple signs, a couple organisms like that blue crab you see middle left, top right with a dolphin, and as a joke to my professor, sup Dr. Manning, we were tasked to take a picture by a runway. So me and my friend, we drove 2.5 miles, as you see on the bottom of the screen, to the nearest airport. That's right, my friends, we drove the extra 2.5 miles to an airport to take a picture with a runway. So there's that. We think you meant walkway, Dr. Manning, but we got a picture of that too at your bottom right. Now, if you look at organisms with shells, the pen shell to the left, Atrina rigida. Does not look like a rigida to me, but, looks can be deceiving. Now, if you look to the right, the common quahog clam. Not even gonna try to pronounce its scientific name because, no. And if you look to the bottom left, you see the giant heart cockle. With the two halves, the bivalves are joined like an actual heart. That is why it is given its name. The left-handed whelk, that is given its name because of the way the spirals are actually turning. So it's turning towards the left-hand side instead of the right-hand side when you look at it. Now, on the next slide, you can see a giant red hermit crab. It is actually a very common organism in the Gulf of Mexico, along with the Florida fighting conch. Personally, I've never seen these guys fight each other, but all I know is that they scared me as a child because I thought these were empty shells, and to my surprise, they were not. It was very scary. Now, the spider crab at this aquarium scared the living daylights out of me, but we took a picture of this beautiful thing anyway. And a lettered olive snail was also taken a photo. I actually had to take it out of its exhibit to get this photo. I apologize to the snail if I did hurt it in any way, shape, or form. The next is the swimming crab, and then the Florida spiny lobster. It actually had a friend, but I think they were on the outs because they were on opposite sides of the tanks and would not look at each other even remotely. We next got our adhesive-producing organisms. You see first the short-spined sea urchin. These are the more common sea urchins that you see in the Gulf of Mexico that are on the shallow end. And then the purple sea urchin, which looks like a torture device, if you ask me. It is purple, 1. And 2, look at those spikes. If you really look in and start burning your eyes, they look very, very, very scary. And now, to a more pressing matter, the sessile organisms, who do nothing. Now, if you look at the red beard sponge, these sponges are actually in danger of global warming, and I will get to that in a later topic farther down this project. And then to the right, you see the sea pork, which does not look appetizing in any way, shape, or form. Next, you have the orange devil's fingers and the red devil's fingers. Now, I don't know what the deal is with these two types of devil fingers, but you can be assured that they are also in danger of global warming. Next, you have organisms with tentacles. You first have your tropical plumed anemone, which looks actually really pretty. And I believe that these organisms are also bioluminescent if you shine a UV light. That was something I was able to witness in the experimental department of the marine lab that we visited for this project. And then you have a warty sea anemone. I actually ought to pick it up. And it did not sting me, so that is a plus. Good anemone. I wish Nemo had you as a friend. Next, for the organisms with tentacles, we got the rock anemone. These are very tiny anemones. They do not grow very large. The one to the right, the common octopus. This is the organism with tentacles that also produces a dye. Most common octopuses and squids and cuttlefish, they are known to produce dyes as a defense mechanism to get away from predators. And now we have reached the nocturnal organisms of this presentation. To my left, you have the nurse shark with the scientific name Glycymostoma serratum. That is a very difficult name to say, so we're just going to call her Becky because she seems very nice. And to my right, we have the mole crab, Emerita talpoida. These little guys like to dig in the ground during the day and seek shade, and then at night is whenever they hunt for food along the ocean floor. Next, you have the lionfish. This is also going to be covering a more pressing topic later on in this presentation. And then we have the clownfish, also known as the Great Nemo, or Marlin, whichever you prefer. Nemo's my favorite. Then we have the Atlantic tarpon. Personally, I have never seen one of these fishes until yesterday, whenever I went to the aquarium. It looks pretty cool, shiny. You can't go wrong with shiny. And then you have its very ugly stepsister counterpart, the Gulf toadfish. I could not find this thing for a solid 5 minutes. I thought I was looking at an empty tank, and as soon as I came eye to eye with it, I slightly screamed. Next, we have our weird-looking organisms, the ocellated moray eel. I did not even know that they had these type of eels, but from what I know, if you touch it, it will sting you. For those who have not gone to this lab yet, do not touch, because it will sting, and it will hurt. And then you have our purple or maroon sea pansy. Could also go under sessile organisms because it also does nothing. It just chills, which is my kind of organism. And then we have our starfish. Now, to the left, you see a chocolate sea star, which surprisingly looks appetizing. I will not lie. I would eat that for dessert. And the cool thing is, at this aquarium, they actually have a rare version of the sea star because instead of the traditional 5 or 6 arms, it actually has 4, which makes it very rare in the ocean. To the right, you have your more common small spine sea star. These sea stars can be in multiple colors, mainly dark maroon like the picture you see here, or a very dark orange with white specked spots. And now we move on to our climate change or ocean acidification articles. The first article talks about one of the sea urchins we discussed earlier in this slide. The study was about its immunological response to climate change. It just compared and contrasted between one type of sea urchin and another type. It actually showed that climate change showed a significant decrease in the phagocytic indices and a decrease in both the cell adhesion and the cell spreading. Were observed at 25 and 30 degrees Celsius for our species. 25 and 30 degrees Celsius is actually, for the ocean, really warm, so it has a huge impact on all sea urchin populations, so gotta keep that in mind. The next is the lionfish that we talked about earlier. According to this report, climate change does not necessarily have a negative effect on lionfish in general, but it did have the effect on the population growth and how out of control it is. Lionfish in the marine world are known to be highly invasive species. They're very poisonous. They just multiply like crazy. The effects of climate change have confirmed that the lionfish invasion in our world's oceans is clear and a present threat. Next, we have our more common known problems in the ocean about different types of coral or sponges, like the red beard sponge we have right here. This necessarily wasn't talking about climate change, but we are talking about ocean acidification, which is the pH becoming more basic or becoming more acidic, depending on how you look at it. The pH change for this report was 6.5 to 6.6, and it potentiated aggregation. Moderate pH shifted remarkably, affecting the aggregation response of the sponge cells. All I know is that, in general, it is not good for our oceans, and we need to fix ocean acidification and try to control climate change for these organisms because as of right now, they are dying out. If you look at coral reefs, they are dying out, and these organisms are just another part of those reefs. Next, you have the common octopus. Global warming has actually shortened the embryonic developmental time by 13 days. Whenever you think about that, that's like an octopus. So if you think about a human, and it takes them about a year, a mom, to produce a child from pregnancy all the way up to a birth. That's like taking away maybe 3 months out of that. It's very, very disturbing, but that is an effect that climate change has on this common creature that you find just off the shores in the Gulf of Mexico. Next, we have more types of sponges. This was basically just about bioerosion rates, and you can see that they have increased with the presence of global warming. You can just look at photos and pictures online, and it is very horrific that it just looks like someone just sprinkled white all over our coral reefs. There's barely any color in some of them. This is due to bioerosion rates. Now, this one feels like a personal attack. Nemo is in trouble yet again. If you read fact number 2, the highest densities of these fishes were found on reefs close to fishing and aquarium collecting sites. This probably means that the collecting is compounding or counteracting the effects of the bleaching happening all across the ocean. So, in a very strange way, the clownfish feel more protected by things you would think that would put them even more in danger, which, if you have seen Finding Nemo, that should not be the case. But this article, according to it, they feel more safe in these areas. Next, you see again the octopus, but this time we're talking about unique chemical compounds found or produced by these organisms. So the first from this common octopus, it doesn't just emit one chemical or two chemical, but it emits free amino acids, such as names I cannot pronounce, plus ammonium. Now, the fact about this is that they can squirt ink in the water to hide themselves, and they use these FAAs to attack and numb an attacker's sense of smell so that the octopus can escape undetected. Now, I mean, that seems pretty cool for the octopus, but not necessarily for its attacker. That just sounds like it sucks. The next unique chemical is produced by the purple sea urchin. It actually releases a chemical called trilopyryl. I hope I'm saying that correctly, but unfortunately, little is known about this chemical. All we know is that it, as newly emerged as it is an anti-fouling biocide, which rapidly degrades in water. Studies have probably suggested, like the very little studies out there, the deadly spikes of the sea urchin release it, but what it actually does is not really known. Research is still going on. So that seems like an interesting topic for those who seem interested. And the next one is, you know what, I'm just gonna give her a name. This one's Becky. She works at Sea Hospital, I suppose. The chemical produced by a nurse shark is nitric oxide. This chemical, although not generally unique among the world of chemistry and marine chemistry, but in terms of production, it is a little bit unique. The chemical produced by a nurse shark is nitric oxide, and it is produced in the peripheral blood leukocytes, and they stimulate with the bacterial cell wall in the lipopolysaccharide. So that sounds actually pretty cool. And here we are again. Nemo's in trouble. A lot of little kids ask this question, like, how does Nemo not get stung by his own home? How come clownfish actually have a mucus protected barrier between them and the sea anemone that they live in? Now, it is like a chemical camouflage or a macromolecular mimicry to avoid telling the anemone, like, hey, I'm an enemy. Like, I am one with you instead. We are here together. So that is the end of the unique chemical articles, and next we'll be moving on to the St. Mark's Lighthouse presentations. Here is me by the Lighthouse Champions board. It shows you all people who sponsor this place, keep it going. Shout out to those people, and also the lighthouse from a very, very strange angle, but was beautiful nonetheless. And now you can see these are fiddler crabs. To the left is the sand fiddler crab. Originally, me and my partner, so we couldn't find anything on this beach at first. We just saw dead pieces of crabs. So it's not this photo, but somewhere on my iCloud account, there is a photo of a perfectly constructed crab made out of dead crab animal parts. Now, if you would like that video, just leave a comment down below and I will post it on my next video on Desperate Extra Credit with Lucas. But until then, we're just gonna roll with this. So this is a picture I took of a live crab, and you can tell it's a sand fiddler crab by the markings on its head. It has a black and pink, yes, insignia mark. Looks like a tattoo. I don't know. Think he's too young. What do you think? Just look at him. And then, oh crab, I misspelled that. Oh well. This is the Atlantic marsh fiddler crab. Funny story about this one as well. He literally scared me to where I ran in the ocean. Get away from him. He ran across my foot and was not nice. But these guys are very camouflaged. They're normally found in the marsh side of St. Mark's, but for some reason it was on the ocean side, and I can't complain because I needed him. So thank you, Mr. Crab. Next, we have the thin-striped hermit crab. Now, this was the only one I saw on the beach, and you can tell it's a thin-striped hermit crab because of the stripes along its legs. Me and my partner took a video of this crab that looked very scary, so viewer discretion would be advised if I posted this, but I will spare you guys the pain, so we will continue on with the next crab, the long-wristed hermit crab. Now, this little guy was a pain to take a photo of because he kept wanting to jump in the water and fight with his friends. There were two other crabs, and it took us at least half an hour to take this photo, but we took it nonetheless because he wanted to either hide or play. There was no in between. Next, we have the Atlantic horseshoe crab. These crabs are essentially like a living fossil. If you haven't seen one in a museum or at an aquarium, just know that these guys are creepy. Next is the Atlantic blue crab. Now, unfortunately, we were not able to take a picture of the actual live crab. It just wanted to hide away from us because I guess we scared it too much because of our faces. This is a distinction. It is a blue and red tipped pincer. So that is its distinguishing feature. And if you guys have had blue crabs on a dinner plate, you guys will know that they are very, very tasty. Next, we move to our shelled organisms. Barnacles. Barnacles, yes, these are barnacles. I believe these are purple barnacles. There are two common types in the state of Florida or in the Gulf of Mexico. There are ivory barnacles and there are the purple striped barnacles. These are purple striped. And then you have your eastern oyster. The eastern oyster is one of 6 different types of oysters found in the North America region of the world. Actually, I think in the world in general as edible oysters. They're scattered along the beach, and man, if I could only have these with, some marinara sauce, oh, they would be so tasty. But unfortunately, it was dead. And next we have an algae plant. These are found all over the beach. You can tell that this is a sargassum algae because of the bulbs that it has and that it is brown. That is what its common color is. And then you have a sable palm, a sable palmetto. Funny story of my childhood. My mother made me dig up these palmetto trees in their baby forms, and it took us about an hour and a half to 2 hours to dig up one of these trees because their roots go down so far and they are so stubborn in the end. So that was not fun, but we did it nonetheless because we love moms. And then next, more marine organisms, bird edition. So whenever you go to the beach, you have a bag of chips in your hand. What's the one thing you should worry about? Yes, you guessed it, birds. On the left, you have the gull-billed tern. Now, it is very hard to tell from this picture, but unlike seagulls, the gull-billed tern has a black head, and the wings on the underside are completely gray, and on the top side of the wings, however, there is black endings on the very tips. Its tail feathers also have like 1 or 2 black feathers, which you can kind of see in the photo as well. And then on the right, you have the boat-tail gackle. Those were everywhere at St. Mark's. And then we've reached the end of our report. We were tasked with locating the most northern point of the St. Mark's River, and if you look at the photo, you can see it reaches about 15-20 miles northeast of Tallahassee. It does not cross into Georgia, even with its connecting rivers, which is quite unfortunate, but all roads lead to Rome. That made no sense, but we're gonna go with it. So, these are the end of the report questions. All these were found on Google, as we were tasked with to find. What is the salinity of the ocean, one may ask? Well, on average, seawater in the world's oceans has a salinity of approximately 3.5%, or 35 parts per 1,000 liters. What is the average pH in the ocean? Since the ocean is slightly basic, it averages about 8.1 to 8.2 pH. And what is the average of dissolved oxygen in the ocean? And it is just below 5%. The top 5 cations are sodium, magnesium, calcium, potassium, and strontium. And the top 5 anions found in seawater are chloride, sulfate, bicarbonate, bromide, and borate. Where is the deepest point in the world's oceans? It is commonly known as the Mariana Trench or Marianas Trench. It is located in the western Pacific Ocean, approximately 200 kilometers, or 124 miles, east of the Mariana Islands, and has a deep natural trench, and it's just under 7 miles in depth, approximately 6.831, but I mean, who's counting? Just saying. And that is how deep it is, so very, very, very deep. Like my desperation to get this extra credit. And thank you so much for watching. Till next time on Desperate Extra Credits with Lucas.